Hi, my name is Claire. I am an 8th grader at Morris Middle School.
And I am Ethan, and I am a junior at Avonworth High School. Today's video will help prepare you for World Rabies Day video conference. The mission of World Rabies Day is to raise awareness about the impact of rabies on people and animals, how easy it is to prevent it, and how to eliminate the main causes of rabies.
Most cases of rabies happen outside of the United States, and most victims are children who are bitten by dogs who live in the street. These cases happen in regions of the world where rabies is just one of the many challenges the children face. The good news is that the tools and technology are available to prevent rabies in people and eliminate it in dogs.
But there are also cases of rabies in western Pennsylvania. In fact, PA has more domestic rabies cases than any other state in America. We're joined today by Dr. Erin Moore, the veterinarian from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture's Bureau of Animal Health. Dr. Moore will be teaching us more about rabies so that we're ready for the video conference on World Rabies Day. Let's begin. Dr. Moore, can you please tell us a little bit more about your job as a veterinarian in the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture?
Sure, Ethan. As a veterinarian with the Department of Ag, I investigate animal diseases. Diseases that affect both humans as well as animals. Most of these diseases are very bad diseases. Some of them are foreign animal diseases that are not in our country. We investigate to make sure we don't have them. Other diseases are domestic diseases, such as rabies.
All right.
What exactly is rabies?
Well, rabies is a virus. A virus is a very small particle that can infect animals or people. And this particular virus is a very small virus that infects warm-blooded mammals only. So it can't infect birds, it can't infect fish, it can't infect reptiles, but it will infect any warm-blooded mammal. Now, most of the mammals that it affects are carnivores, so animals that eat meat. And particularly raccoons, foxes are wild animals in Pennsylvania.
Okay. And how is it transmitted?
Well, rabies is a very interesting virus in that it infects an animal by entering the skin, let's say from a bite wound. It then migrates to the nervous system. Most viruses go into our blood system, but rabies is very unique in that it does not enter the blood. It enters the nervous system, and it travels up the nerves, very small amount, maybe 1/4 of an inch a day, until it reaches the brain. When it reaches the brain, it infects the brain and causes an encephalitis, which is an inflammation of the brain. After that, the virus makes the victim pretty much go mad, and that victim is then made to attack another victim, so the virus can then be spread. So that's why the victim of rabies will always bite another animal so that it can continue to propagate the virus.
Okay, next question. How can a student tell if an animal that they encounter has rabies?
They could be suspicious of an animal that has rabies by the way that it's acting. It would be abnormal from its typical behavior. Let's take a raccoon, for example. A raccoon is a nocturnal animal. You would only see it at night. It would come out, eat food, rummage around things. So let's say you're walking in the middle of the day and there happens to be a raccoon out in the middle of the day. It's staggering maybe. It's approaching people, which it normally shouldn't do because it's a wild animal. And it may be aggressive or it may not be aggressive. A lot of people think that rabies always makes animals aggressive, but there are several different forms of rabies. A furious form, so they're very aggressive and they attack you, versus a dumb form where they're almost in a coma. They don't even move, they may be paralyzed. I think the most important animal to be on the lookout for with rabies is cats. Because we assume when we see a cat, it's a domestic animal, it's going to be friendly, there's no reason to worry about it, versus that raccoon in the middle of the day. So if you would see a cat that was acting a little bit abnormal, maybe it's acting paralyzed, it can't move its back legs, you're very concerned maybe it's been hit by a car. Well, typically in cats, rabies does present as a paralysis of the hind end. So that's something that we need to be worried about, particularly with stray cats.
Why does Pennsylvania have so many domestic rabies cases over other states in the United States?
Well, that's a good question, Claire. In the United States, the state that has the most rabies positive confirmed cases is Texas. and it's probably because they are a very large state, but they're also on the border of Mexico. So Texas always comes in with the most cases. Pennsylvania typically comes in with 5th for the total number of rabies cases. And that includes our wild animals, our raccoons, our foxes, and our domestic animals, which are cats, dogs, cattle, horses, sheep, goats, and deer. So Pennsylvania has been #1 with domestic animals because of cats primarily. Last year, in fact, we had 55 positive rabid cats. And we feel that it is probably that way because stray cats in particular hang out outside in the same locations where the raccoons hang out. And we have raccoon variant rabies in Pennsylvania. And so we have all these wild cats eating from the same locations as the wild raccoons. And they're having little scuffles and they're having fights, and those cats have never been vaccinated against rabies, and so that's where we're getting our domestic rabies numbers.
All right, Dr. Moore. Despite all of the domestic rabies cases we have here in America, how is rabies faring over in other continents like Europe or Asia?
In the world, rabies is extremely high numbers, particularly in Asia, India, and Africa. And the difference in those countries is they have dog variant rabies. Rabies comes in many different variants, and that's determined by a DNA test. We have dog variant, we have raccoon variant, skunk variant, bat variant. So in those foreign countries, they have dog rabies, and it kills over 55,000 people a year. Now in the United States, we do not have the dog variant because we have instituted rabies vaccine is required for all dogs, and dogs have to be on leashes, and dogs have to be well cared for. Well, that's not the case in foreign countries. Dogs run loose on the streets, and people interact with them. Parents try to teach their children, don't touch the wild dogs, but you know how children are. They love puppies, they love dogs, they're going to touch them. And then if they get bitten, what seems to happen is the kid, if it doesn't a bad bite, they don't want to tell their mom because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. So they don't tell their mother, and then they come down with rabies. And once the virus has attacked the brain, like we discussed, there is no treatment for rabies. It is 100% fatal.
Dr. Moore, I've heard that to get a rabies shot, it is nearly 10 shots with very long needles, to be precise, in the stomach.
Well, that used to be how it was, Ethan. The vaccine had to be given in the stomach, but that's no longer true. If you get bit or exposed by a rabid animal, you have to go to the emergency room, and the first thing they give you is this immunoglobulin. And immunoglobulin is injected directly into the wound, so that could be pretty painful depending on the site of the wound. And that works immediately to bind the virus, but it doesn't have very long acting time. So let's say some of the virus has already moved out of the wound. You also receive a vaccination, and the vaccination takes about 10 days to work. So you're hoping that this immunoglobulin and this vaccination are going to work in conjunction with each other so that you will be protected. Now, the first day you'll get both the immunoglobulin and the vaccine. It's determined how much you get by your weight. Then you'll come back on day 3 and you'll get just the vaccine. Then you come back on day 7 and again on day 14. So it's reduced to just 4 shots, and including the immunoglobulin. Not in your stomach, in your arm, maybe in your butt, if you need a lot of vaccine.
Now, why did they change that? Why
Scientific research.
Okay.
They found that this worked. And probably back in the day when they weren't sure, they administered a lot more of it. They thought they could get it faster into the body by putting it directly into the abdomen. You get a very quick response when it goes into the abdomen versus the muscle of the arm. So with scientific research, we've been able to find out this works. We don't do experiments on rabies to find out if we reduced it by much more, would it work? No person wants to be that person who doesn't get the full dose. But with research and many, many years, we have found that will work.
All right, go ahead.
Well, thank you for your time, Dr. Moore. We'll be seeing you again soon during the video conference on World Rabies Day.
Each room should prepare a list of questions that you'd like to ask Dr. Moore during the video conference. Please nominate 2 students who will ask the questions during the video conference.